Learning how to scratch was a long, and I mean long ass. But no, for real, all jokes aside, learning how to scratch definitely was a long journey. However, it has definitely been one of the most fulfilling things I've done as a DJ. And in this video, I'm gonna be sharing the 11 steps, rules, tricks, whatever you wanna call it, that I would follow if I was learning how to scratch starting from day one. Let's hop right into it. The very first thing on my list is going to be lowering your expectation. Now, even me with a music background, I went to school, I went to college for music production and sound engineering. Even with that background, all of my theoretical background, it did make that part easier. But as far as getting my hands on the actual jog wheels at first, and then eventually moving up to vinyl, everything took time. There is a big learning curve when it comes to scratching. So if I could go back, the first thing I would do is say, hey, whether I have a practice schedule or even if I don't have a practice schedule, let me just do this as much as I can. Whenever I have time, I'm just gonna practice and I'm gonna have zero expectation. Now, of course, you wanna be getting better. I'm not saying literally go into it and just do whatever, practice anything and just be like, hey, I'm just doing whatever. But I'm just simply saying, don't expect too much too quickly. The thing that helped me the most, or the thing that I realized, is after I stopped caring about expectations, because I would start, quit, start, quit, start, quit. I literally kept doing that over and over. When I had no expectation, I just looked up and like things were starting to slowly come together. Number two is going to be picking a piece of equipment and sticking with it at least until you're done learning the fundamentals and the basics of scratching. So whether you're using jog wheels, a beginner controller, a mid-tier, high tier, if you know me, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I always recommend having motorized platters. However, if you don't, whatever you have, you can definitely learn how to scratch, but just stick with the first thing you get. Every single piece of equipment is gonna have a different feel, so you don't wanna try to be learning on this piece of equipment and then now you're moving up to another piece of equipment which has a completely different resistance, or you're going from motorized back to jog wheels, you just wanna have one piece of equipment. Pick something, stick with it, learn the basics, then you can upgrade or do whatever may have you. Number three is going to be super quick, which is just learning basic music theory. Now for me, I already understood music theory. However, if you do not have any knowledge or experience with music theory, I do have a video on my channel where I just go over some of the fundamentals. It'll definitely help you as you're learning different techniques, and especially when you're starting to string together multiple scratch patterns or just multiple scratch techniques. It'll help you as far as like where you're dropping it, how many beats each particular scratch pattern is worth, all those kinds of things. So definitely learn a little bit of music theory as you're beginning to learn how to scratch. Moving on to number four, this right here is going to be a big one. Learn how to scratch without using the crossfader first. You can tell when a DJ is using the vinyl or using the jog wheel and they're kind of just moving the crossfader without true intention. That's kind of how I started. I immediately jumped into trying to move the crossfader and I just didn't really understand what I was doing. So I say this to say, don't worry about the crossfader at the beginning. Learn the baby scratch, learn the tear scratch, learn the scribble scratch, get a little bit of speed down with those as well until you can do little short scratch patterns in your cuts. Not necessarily cuts, because cuts usually are with the crossfader, but until you have the basics down and you're really comfortable with your left hand and preferably your right hand, using both hands with the baby, the tear, those beginner basic scratches, do that first, then move on to the more advanced scratches, or then move on to using the crossfader. I promise it'll make a world of difference. Now, after you have those basics down without using the crossfader, then number five is going to be actually using the crossfader. So you have your chirp scratch, definitely start there. You definitely want to get really good with your transformer scratches. You can move on to flares, your stab scratch, crab scratch, dice scratch. There's tons of scratches. Obviously, most scratching is done using the crossfader. And on top of using the crossfader, also, I just want to add, be intentional with your scratching. You never want to just be doing things. I mean, you'll eventually get to a point where you can freestyle and it'll just come as like second nature. However, I would say it took me a long time to get there. Intentionality, using the crossfader, taking it little by little. All right, so number six, if I could go back, I would have definitely focused on different BPMs and building up speed. I think it's really easy to kind of find a BPM that you're comfortable scratching at or within a certain range, and you only practice in that range, or you only scratch when you have a song that's playing in that range. definitely try to break out of that habit. Try things at 70 ppm,
What?
80, 90, 100, 110, 120. Even if you have to slow down the scratches or you have to do it in halftime, do whatever you have to do. But definitely at the beginning, you want to start practicing at different speeds. Even if you're just doing the baby scratch over and over, then moving to the chirp scratch, then putting those kind of together, you want to be practicing at different BPMs. You don't want to get too comfortable at one set BPM, and then as soon as you try to do the same scratch at another BPM, you're like, I just can't even do it because I'm just used to doing it at 85. Now when I'm at 105, it feels impossible. That can be a little bit discouraging. So if you practice everything from the very beginning at these different BPMs, I promise that'll also make a world of difference. All right, now number 7 is another one of those things that I really wish I would have known a lot earlier in my scratch journey, and that's going to be watching and learning from other professional scratch DJs. And when I say that, I mean, see a video of them, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you look at your media. If you can slow down the speed, or you're most likely going to have to slow down the speed. I had to 75 to 50%. Watch what they're doing and try to do the same exact thing. It's no different than like baseball or basketball or football. People always study the greats. There is no shame, at least in my opinion, there's no shame in doing that. Now, I'm not saying copy someone's entire scratch set and then go and do it and try to claim it as yours. I'm not saying that whatsoever. However, when you're learning, the same way I break down my scratch pattern breakdowns, that helped me tremendously. These professional DJs out here that are scratching, they are amazing at what they do. Half the time, I really can't even copy them exactly. It's really hard to follow along. However, in me doing that, it completely transformed my scratching ability. In no time, I was literally putting together different scratch techniques. I would be trying to do what I learned, and then I would just do other things by trying to do what I was trying to do, if that makes sense. I know I just said that super crazy, but essentially all I'm saying is you try to repeat the scratch pattern and you end up making mistakes, which actually turns out into your own scratch pattern. So watch other DJs, learn what they're doing, emulate them, break it down yourself. Watch some of my breakdown videos. That is going to be a game changer, especially as far as stringing together different scratch techniques. Now that brings me right into number 8, which is going to be creating your own scratch patterns. It wasn't until I literally started watching other DJs and emulating what they were doing, that's when I could really start putting together my own stuff. At the very beginning, like I said, I was trying to use the crossfader. I'm trying to do this, do that, thinking I'm doing something. And then when I think back to it, I had no intentionality as far as what I was actually doing. I was just doing anything, trying to sound sweet, just sounding crazy. If you want to be honest, like scratch DJs can pick up when another DJ is just not really understanding what they're doing. It is super obvious to see, and it just sounds obvious. So learning how to scratch is just like learning a language. You want to take the beginner basic sentences, learn those, and then you can start forming different sentences. Forming those sentences when you're learning a language is the same as forming different scratch patterns. It is no different. You don't want to learn the basics and then try to learn the most advanced thing. Like you don't want to learn how are you and my name is and then try to recite an entire like paragraph from a novel or something. It's just not going to work. You have to learn in pace. You have to learn sentence structures. Same exact thing. Basic sentence structures, basic scratch techniques. Then start putting together your own stuff. So if you're at the baby scratch, put together some babies, some chirps, throw in some transformers in there. Once you got that, maybe add some crabs, add some stabs. Just add little by little, and I promise you, before you know it, you'll be doing all kinds of stuff. You'll be like, damn, I got far fast. I don't really want to say fast per se, because I mean, you might pick it up super quickly. You might be a wizard. It took me a while. You never know. Everybody's a little bit different. All right, DJs, everything from here is gonna kind of just string together. I mean, this entire thing kind of strung together a little bit. However, number 9 is going to be building up your freestyle ability where you don't have to think as much when you're scratching. Again, for me, I was doing scratch patterns, or I was trying to do scratch patterns sometimes. I would learn like 4 or 5. I would try to do all of them back to back. And in trying to do that, I couldn't remember them all. So I ended up doing different things, and that ended up really building my ability to freestyle. So learning how to freestyle is definitely gonna be important. Eventually, you wanna get to the point where you can just turn on your decks and you can just start kind of freestyling. I mean, you're just freestyling. You're just doing things, but it'll feel real natural. It'll feel really natural. You'll know when you get that feeling of, I can just sit down and scratch where I don't have to think about it. If I could go back, I definitely would have tried practicing that much earlier, or like, I feel like I didn't do it until towards the very end. Like I was really good at scratching and doing scratch patterns, and then I started freestyling. You want to be freestyling maybe even towards the beginning, like not the very beginning, but when you start getting things down, you can freestyle then. You can freestyle using the baby scratch, just the baby scratch. You can freestyle just using the chirp scratch. So some things in the later parts of this video, you can definitely still implement at the beginning of your scratch journey as well. Number 10 is going to be going back and learning other scratch techniques that you may not have learned in the beginning. I think you should always be a student of the game. For me specifically, I'm actually just now learning the boomerang scratch. There's tons of other scratches like the Autobahn. There's one more that I want to learn soon too. But I feel like eventually you can, of course, learn every single scratch technique. However, I feel like there's so many, and there's so many different DJs that have so many different styles. There's so much to learn. So whenever you feel like, okay, I've learned everything, go back and find something else to learn. And I think if I would have focused on that maybe a little while ago, I'd probably be even further in my scratch journey right now. I kind of got comfortable doing the things I knew how to do. And then I was like, okay, I don't really need to learn anything else. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, no, there's still things I need to still practice and still learn. Now, last but not least, we have number 11, which is going to be practicing that speed and practicing in double time. Now, this is going to be super helpful when you're trying to scratch at BPMs like 70 or 80. You don't always want to be doing some like really slow scratching. So if you really want to sound like you can DJ, or scratch, DJ, scratch. If you really want to sound like a professional and get those quick cuts in and get them clean, you want to be practicing at double time, okay? All right, DJs, so those are the 11 tips, tricks, rules, guidelines, whatever you want to call it, things that I wish I would have known when I first started learning how to scratch. These are things that I probably did way out of order, but if I could go back and I would have known all of these things that I just said, it would have made me a much better scratch DJ much faster. I would say I still got to where I am now, and I definitely have a long way to go. I'm by no means an expert, super advanced DJ. I would consider myself an intermediate at best. However, if I would have known these things, I would have definitely made progress a lot faster. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If you did enjoy this video, please share it with another DJ that's trying to learn how to scratch. Press that like button, press the subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell so you know the next time that I upload a video. And without further ado, it's kind of late where I'm at. Like my eyes feel like they're coming down. It's gonna be funny watching this video back, like when I'm editing it, to see if my eyes like started getting lower. Like my eyes feel low. But anyways, I'm just talking at this point. So I will catch y'all on the next flight. Keep scratching, y'all. Keep scratching. I promise you'll get it. It's one of the best and most fun things that I've ever learned how to do. I love it. I love it. Hard work, but I promise it is worth it.